So cool. So this should be pulling up on this live stream, but I wanted to take a couple minutes to just kind of talk about some of the essential kind of project management tips and tricks that like you want to familiarize yourself with before you kind of get into like typical developer like work environments. So what I'm gonna do is just pull up a new browser window to just accompany me talking about this real quick, and just kind of explain a couple things about like when you get into the workplace, what is that? What is the kind of like the workflow that you see? So, cool. So I think this is the right one. All right, cool. So your first day working in tech, right? And typically, what comes with the territory of working in tech, typically is like project management. Like you have big deliverables that you need to get accomplished, and your team is working together to get those deliverables accomplished, right? So one way that teams are organizing themselves in the project management sense is using a framework called Agile development, which is a methodology more than a framework. It's a way of thinking about how to organize teams. And the Agile process is something that you're going to hear a lot as you're entering tech, and it's based on these principles that were written called the written in a resource called the Agile Manifesto. And the Agile Manifesto is very short. This is it, right? And it says, we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there's value in the items on the right, these ones, we value the items on the left more, right? And so the group of folks that came together to come up with this manifesto are all very accomplished software engineers. If you literally Google any of these folks, you'll see that each of them have done some really amazing work in the computer science discipline through their career. And they came together because they were all proponents of these different types of teamwork that was happening in their different companies and the different environments they were working in. And they wanted to come up with some similar themes around how do they look at the best ways of writing software. And Agile became kind of this methodology that they were talking about that was a mindset thing. It was about how do you prioritize these things on the left over these things on the right. And each of them, and some of them more than others, contributed different types of project management tips and tricks to accomplish some of the things on the left versus some of the things on the right. A lot of those things are what we now know as Agile frameworks and tools, but Agile itself is a way of thinking. So there's no real like, this is how you do it, but there's a lot of different tools you can use to help accomplish this. So one of the most important tools that come up often in software engineering landscapes that are trying to work with Agile is this concept of what's called Kanban and Scrum. And Kanban and Scrum are two different types of, let me solve this capture real quick. so y'all know I ain't no robot. Oh, they think I'm a robot. I'm so sorry, y'all, my bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, sorry you guys see me down bad like this. But two of the most important concepts related to showcasing kind of Agile projects and workflows is this concept of Kanban and Scrum. So you'll hear about it often, and you'll see these things pretty often too, like boards that are built like this, where you see like list of items that need to get done, and teams are working to get these items done, right? Kanban is one type of way of organizing it, and Scrum is another way of organizing it. So there's some differences between the two, just in the way in which you kind of organize the tasks, but the concept fundamentally is the same. A lot of times in the project management space, you'll see that teams will create project management boards to manage the tasks that they have in development, right? Oftentimes, the task will be kind of organized by way of, hey, we have a list of tasks that we haven't really organized in terms of like our to-dos yet, but we are just listing out all the things we know we're going to need to do. And then normally we think about our to-dos, things that are currently in progress, things we're testing or need review, and things that are done. Kind of just like as we're checking things off, we're moving items from one side of the board to the other side. And the reason that these tools, these like project management tools are really helpful is because they allow for you to organize like the steps you need to take a big project into completion in a visual way for more people in your team to understand and organize, right? Nowadays, there's a lot of tools that allow for us to do Kanban and Scrum and these types of project management boards online, right? One of the common ones that I like to use is called Trello. Trello allows you to create Kanban boards, and those Kanban boards are basically just digital versions of those boards that we were just talking about. It's going to take a minute, so I might as well just do it here. So with Trello, a lot of the boards are digital, and you can easily create those Kanban boards, right? Another tool that we see common in developer environments is Jira. And Jira and Trello are both owned by the same parent company, Atlassian. But Jira also allows for you to create these Kanban structured boards, as well as just, project management tools and tips in general. Like Jira is like Trello's big brother, got like a lot of more features, a lot more things going on in it that allow for you to keep projects on task and list out like kind of how things are going for your team. What are some open tickets that people might need to take? And typically as an engineer or somebody working in these contexts, whether it's as an engineer, project manager, product manager, you're going to be responsible for managing some board like this that keeps track of the tasks for you and your teammates. And make sure that you're able to speak to what needs to get done, what isn't done yet, and where y'all are at in the process. So Kanban and Scrum are two very important frameworks that allow for us to create these types of project management boards. Trello is a great lightweight one to start with if you're looking for a tool to get started with. Jira is a tool that you can bet most developer teams, if you're an engineer, most developer teams or bigger project management teams or product management teams are using Jira. But they're both owned by the same parent company, which makes it very great for like getting started with Trello and getting started with Jira and then, moving into either one. So I bring this up because in Agile, right, a lot of teams want to move Agile. They want to prioritize these things on the left. But in order to get there, they need ways to do that in terms of working together. And coming up with those types of tools and those types of abilities to work in these ways requires a lot of collaboration. And sometimes you need some technology to help you do that, right? And so a lot of what we'll talk about going forward are just other frameworks that are helpful in the project management environment, and how we can use those frameworks and tools and things to support us in the process of trying to move Agile as much as other enterprise teams are doing in their own environments. So yeah, Agile is cool. It is a specific type of developer development workflow that is to be contrasted with another type of project management workflow that's called waterfall. The goal of Agile is quick iterations. Oh my God, they want me to do this again. The goal of Agile is quick iterations, whereas the goal of waterfall is kind of sequential, like one thing after the other. And so with Agile, right, you move faster and you get more opportunities to test things versus in waterfall, things kind of get stuck in phases that each phase has to happen before the next phase can go. Agile is more about how can we make each loop of our cycle contain the different phases we need, like design, test, develop, right? Versus in a waterfall environment, you see normally, oh, we're in design phase and we got to wait for this to be done to go into development phase. And we got to wait for this to be done to be in test phase. Agile is more like, instead of having to wait like this, how can we move more autonomously and get these cycles going quicker? One other concept that comes up very commonly in the Agile workplace is this concept called sprints, which is about how we manage our tasks in like an Agile context, right? And so really like a sprint is just the idea of breaking down like a big project into a series of smaller time-based increments that allow us to do those loops, do those cycles, right? So we'll make a sprint, like a week-long time that we'll do some development, building, and testing. And by the end of that week, we'll look at what happened, reassess, and then the next week we'll do another cycle and another cycle and another cycle. Typically, teams will host sprint meetings, like a sprint planning meeting at the start of like the cycle and a retrospective meeting at the end of the cycle. Those meetings are meant to get the team together to give you an opportunity to like plan stuff as well as review how things went and reflect. We would typically use a board like those boards I showed you to kind of manage what we talk about in the sprint planning and in the retrospective meeting. But the idea is that you use those meetings to really get in tune with your team and understand kind of what's working, what's not working. And in addition to those two meetings, we will have meetings that we call stand-ups. And the stand-up would be a meeting that happens a little bit more frequently, where you check in with your team and get more updated information on, hey, how are things going? Are there any blocks? Are there any barriers to you getting some specific tasks done that the team needs to know about? And you work with the team during those stand-ups and afterwards to like address any blocks and make sure that you get to finish whatever the sprint task is that you have, right? So in an environment that asks you to work in an agile context, clearly you can see there's a lot of touch points. You have a lot of meetings with other developers, other engineers, other product managers, other project managers. But your goal should be to work together to get accomplished like this very specific task that you set up in your sprints. Typically your manager will set those up, like what sprints, what are the tasks, like those types of things. But as you get a more mature and more senior in your role, you start being more responsible for setting those things up. So I'm bringing this up because these are just important concepts you just need to know as you're kind of stepping your foot into these spaces. And I'm looking forward to teaching you more about them over time and giving you more game on like how to enter into the tech field and work successfully.